even if it feels hard, and it will, so much of it will feel hard when you're growing your business or just establishing it. Even when that happens, you're going to be someone who's focused on building, on getting to the end point, on like continuing to add pieces to it, make it bigger, make it better, take pieces away that aren't working, replace them with those that are. So that's how I think if you have a strong background where that was something that you did, then you're probably going to make a decent entrepreneur.
You hear all the bull about marketing every day. Make your money in your sleep. My new offer is crushing it. My guru could beat up your guru. It's time to go right to the source and get the truth about marketing. With your host, the founder of copychief.com, Kevin Rogers.
Welcome back to The Truth About Marketing. Great episode today with Joanna Wiebe. She is a badass copywriter and has a totally badass website about copywriting and a lot of other cool marketing stuff at copyhackers.com. And like me, she's very passionate about helping freelance copywriters build better careers. So Joanna, it is so cool to meet you, and I really appreciate you being here today.
Well, thank you. It's awesome to be here, and to meet you as well.
Cool. So let's get to know each other. I want to talk about you as a copywriter because, every time I read something on your site or see what you're talking about, I've been doing this 12 years now, and I'm like, I got to find this out. I mean, you still get, you just did a webinar on landing pages, and I don't know what, I just trust you that you are clearly in the mix. And you're out there, the stuff you teach is results, based, right? So,
yes.
That just makes you so much more legit than a lot of people out there flapping their gums. So,
well, thanks. I hope so. That's good.
But I want to go back. Let's go back as far as your memory will allow. And tell me about the first thing you ever wrote and felt really good about.
Oh, good question. For me, like if we're going back, like back, like all the way back.
All the way back.
Okay, so the first thing that I vividly recall thinking, maybe this would be neat to like do this all the time. So it was in my childhood when I was sitting at my Nana's house. So after my parents got divorced, we spent a lot of time with my Nana while my dad was going back to school. So we were at my Nana's house, and she got this electric typewriter, and I was like, what is this? It was just really neat, right? Like it's like it moved, you didn't have to push the thing back on the top, it did it by itself. So I was playing around on this typewriter, and I wrote this little quick couple paragraphs story about something, and in it I described like a finger or the way a hand moved or something. And my sister and my Nana both read it, and they were like, I can really see the finger. And I don't know if they were just blowing sunshine up my butt or whatever, but it felt awesome. And I was like, oh, neat. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to look, right? When they're like, oh, this is how it looks to me. And I was like, yeah, exactly. And so I was like, I don't know, 10, 11, probably 10 at the time. And that was the moment when I was like, cool. Is there a way to do this more? Can I keep doing this?
That's great. I love it. So it was like what is this shiny toy that makes this cool sound?
Yes, and that I get to push it to make that sound, and people are like, "Well done, you!" Like that's cool.
And the writer emerged. So essentially, your first great writing moment was showing people the finger.
That's going on my t-shirt, obviously. That was it. Showed someone the finger, and I've been badass ever since.
That's awesome. So cool. So when you write now, what kind of environment do you need to tap into that, whatever that was, that seed, right? Are you very environment conscious when you write?
Mm-hmm. I'm so environment conscious that it's once it's in my head that I'm in the wrong space. If that's what you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I think for a second this isn't the right space to write in, I'm completely screwed. After university, so I did my undergrad in English, not what most people would say is the right thing to do if you want to get a job afterward, but it worked out okay for me. But after I did that, I went and lived in Japan for a year, and I was like, and I went there, one, I love Japan, but secondly, I met somebody at like this wedding or something when I was in university, someone's wedding. And she said she'd just come back from Japan, and when she was there, she read a book a day. And I was like, holy crap. She's like, well, all you do is like, you sit there and they ask you to say a word back in like normal English, and you do, and then they repeat it, and then you get back to your book. And I was like, obviously it didn't actually work out that way, but I went there with this idea that I could like have all this time to read and write. And so I moved into this place in Japan. It was this awesome place. And I put my laptop down in this area I had said would be my writing room. And I sat there and I was like, this is not the room I can write in. I moved all over that little apartment. It was a 3-bedroom, which is really big for it, but it was like this wonderful 3-bedroom place. I tried every room. My brain was not going to go for it. So the whole year, honestly, I'd wanted to spend writing. I think I wrote maybe a couple pages grand total, because it just gets in your head, right? And then you're screwed. So I'm definitely that kind of person.
Yeah, that resistance starts to come in. How much of it is real and how much of it is, in our heads? A good reason to not start writing.
I know. I actually just read, I think it was yesterday, I don't know if it was an old Stephen King quote or something, where they said this idea that you can only write in a certain space is totally in your head. And I was like, oh shit, I wish I'd known that beforehand.
Yeah, thanks for telling me now. I've been moving furniture for 10 years.
Exactly. Like, where were you 15 years ago? Come on.
You trying to say feng shui is not real? Come on.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah, so cool. So how did you kind of make your bones in this business? Like, what was the first stuff you started? I read somewhere that you at first like rejected the term copywriter. Tell me about that little evolution.
So what I loved when I got hired to be what I would later learn was actually a copywriter, I got hired for something just called Writer. It was an agency. I was living in Edmonton, Alberta at the time. I had just dropped out of law school, and I was looking for what to do next. And my friend worked at this agency, and she was like, oh, come, I think we're looking for a writer. And so I got through the application and all the interviews, blah, 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 got the job. So my first day, I'm sitting there with the boss in the little boardroom, and he was like, okay, well, what should we call you? Like a copywriter? And we both like looked at each other and had this same like, ew, gross kind of reaction to it. Like, what? That sounds awful. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. And so we said, no, we'll call it a creative writer. We're a creative agency. Our clients are buying creative from us. And it was pretty true, right? It was true. They were buying creative from us, but sadly, creative alone doesn't sell anything. And if you're a copywriter, if you're just creating creative, honestly, like there's so many people who could put together the right tagline, the right, billboard line of copy, which is not to minimize those who excel at that and might specialize in that, but it's not the same level of value as selling something, being able to write copy that convinces, right? And so that set me back a really long way, just that decision, because then I was like, okay, well, how do we use creative to write copy? Like, how can we produce some creative copy here? And it wasn't until 2 years later when I went over to, Intuit and got a job there as a copywriter. And I was thrust into this world of results, of split testing, which, Omniture, it was then called Omniture Test and Target at the time, and then they got bought by Adobe, and now they're like an Adobe product, which has a completely different name. Anyway, but they were the original like split testing technology. They were outside of Google Website Optimizer, it was called at the time too. Now it's Experiments, whatever. But that's how many iterations have happened since then. Like this was 10, 11 years ago. So I was thrust into this world where there's this expensive software called Omniture Test and Target. We're going to use this because we're spending so much money on it, and we're going to test copy. And so we did. And I actually got to see like, oh crap, that thing I wrote actually tanked. Like it didn't work at all. And then that's a super humbling moment. And you're like, well, I didn't even know I was supposed to be making sales. So then you go and start researching copywriting, and suddenly, it all started coming together.
Oh, wow. That's a great story. Yeah, because many people spend their whole lives willfully avoiding that reality. That, and we're seeing all these trends now, and where finally some of the bigger companies are going, hey, maybe we should only go with the stuff we can measure. Very slowly. And then there's, of course, the great irony that unmeasured media is actually the stuff you can measure, which is just a whole nother topic altogether.
Yeah, wow. That's a good point. That's so true.
It's a great irony of that whole Madison Avenue world. But all right, so let's talk about then. So now you're in the trenches. You embrace. Where do you go?Here do you start that education of direct response?
Yeah, and it was partly direct response and partly just like, it was pulling from everywhere, right? So I was doing a lot of reading on like persuasion, like influence was where like Cialdini's influence. Mm-hmm. After I read that, I presented Cialdini's 6 persuasion techniques or categories, or whatever you want to call them, to our global division marketing team. And they hadn't seen these either. And so everybody was like, what? Like, what is this? What is this scarcity business you speak of?
This voodoo you speak of, yes.
Yeah. And even if they knew like some of them, right, they were still like blown away at these 6 things. We were like, well, what if we started like testing copy around these sorts of things, right? Like, what can we do there? And so we're like, okay, good kernel of an idea. Like, okay, if liking is a persuasion principle, and we want our prospects then to like us or like QuickBooks, what can we do? What can we write that would get them to that point? What kind of campaign can we put together to get them to the point of quote unquote liking us, as Cialdini would say is a good thing to do? It might not work. It might not be that that's the point at which like that's our lever to pull, but maybe it is. So there you're like, okay, so there's the idea. Now how do we actually put it on the page? And so it was a lot of working with market research, which I didn't realize is like something that a lot of people don't do, because I was still really early in copywriting. And so I would talk to the market research team and go over the raw data and look through and see like, oh, that's interesting, what that person said in that survey response, and just document that for later. And then so I was learning a lot about listening to customers, listening to prospects, and actually taking their raw language and seeing how that would work, how that will test. And then, of course, at the same time, reading a bunch of other stuff too, right? And that was stuff like the higher level stuff that I would find on Copyblogger, which taught me a lot early on. And Mike Stelzner, before he did social media stuff, he was the white paper guy. And I read so many things from him about how to write better white papers, which didn't mean I was going to write white papers, but I could take away lessons and see how to test copy that might do those sorts of things. And then getting into more of the deeper copywriting, like the direct response, the Gary Benchavanka kind of stuff, and then filling in those gaps. The more you start tugging at a thread, all these other books like follow, right? Like there's all these other things. So who's this Gene Schwartz character? And John Caples, who? And so then you start discovering those, reading them and going, what the hell? Like, this has been happening all this time, and I've been getting paid to do other stuff. So yeah, then you start testing it and like minds are blown, and that's like when you know you're onto something.
Awesome. Okay, so now it's time to branch out and go freelance. What leads to that? So I really didn't like my boss. Like, I loved working for Intuit, and I had a lot of good bosses. They're an incredible company, but I had this boss at the end, this person that came in, not a good dude, didn't like him at all, terrible, awful. And so I was like, I wrote this I quit email about 500 times. I just never sent it. And then one day I accidentally hit send on it, and I didn't pay attention. I didn't realize I had hit send. I thought I sent something else. And then later that day, it was like end of day Friday, and later that day I was like having a glass of wine with my partner / husband.
And just like it hit me hard out of nowhere. It hit me that holy crap, I had sent the email. So I hauled ass over to my laptop and I couldn't recall it. It had already been opened by HR because I'd written this thing so many times. I had it like down to a science. I knew exactly what to say. I knew what my final date was, that it was going to be like, this is my last day. And I knew who I would CC and everything. And I did. And there was no way back. But that was like, I know that as sick as that made me feel in that moment, no bullshit, sorry to swear, but like no word of a lie, there was like, that was the absolute best thing to do. I would never have done it. Intuit was such a good employer. I would have like held out and like just dealt with my boss who I didn't like and just hoped that he would move on somewhere else or that I would move to a different department. I would have stayed. Like really good benefits, really good stock options, all these things. I wouldn't have gone, and I would maybe still be there floundering and hating my life and having missed out on all these other things. So it was divine intervention clicking that button to yeah.
For the second time in your life, you unknowingly showed somebody the finger.
It's just this like trend in my life, right?
A pattern we've uncovered here.
I pivot around the middle finger. It's weird.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, that is a bit of a common theme with freelancers, that they just put it off for so long. They have this burning desire to make a change. And like you said, it's the golden handcuffs. It is very frightening. We are born into a society that teaches us that security is king.
Yes.
And so much can go wrong, and everybody around us is maybe verbally rooting for us and past that very thin veil, clearly rooting for us to fail so they can go, yeah, sorry. I had a feeling it wouldn't work out. So
exactly.
Let's talk about freelancing and what freelancers face. How do they get in their way and become their own worst enemy?
Oh, geez. How do they get in their way and become, I mean, I guess initially it's just exactly what you said, by just staying there for fear that it won't be there. I had a billion conversations with my partner before I left Intuit, and I just kept saying like, well, how do you even find a client? Like, how will I find, like, how, like, logistically, like, walk me through it. How do I find the client? Because the money doesn't just appear, and I need it because, just like you said, I've been sold on this idea that I need safety and security, and so I have a mortgage now, so I can't just leave. And I think that's one of the bigger things that gets in our way. And then one of the biggest things I see, I do work with a lot of freelance copywriters, and they'll write and say like, can you just walk me through all the parts of like launching my business? Like, how do I set this stuff up? Cool, it's fine, but none of that will work. None of it will actually work if you don't hire yourself for your own business. So I have found that when I force members of my mastermind to like hire themselves, where I'm like, okay, you are going to hire yourself to write a sales page for a product. One, you're going to create the product. Two, you're going to write a sales page for it. And you're going to do that every Friday for 4 hours a day for the next 4 weeks. And you're going to check in with me when you do it. If they don't have those rules around having to hire themselves to grow their own business, it's really easy to put off and obviously and just not do, right? So that's, I think, from what I've seen, that's the biggest thing. Once you go freelance, once you take the leap and you go, from that point on, it's like actually forcing yourself to do things. The things that you do for other businesses, go do for yourself. Which is impossible in a lot of cases unless someone makes you do it.
That's a great point. It's so much of it is, it's interesting because we get into this to do the one thing we love to do. And we think, okay, let me just figure out how to get somebody to pay me to do that. And then that happens, you fulfill the job, the client's happy, they recommend you to other people, and now you got this cycle going, and your business becomes, how do I not let this end? Not how do I grow? And you suddenly realize that you've got a business you're running that requires 4 or 5 staff members, and you would be the shittiest option possible for 4 of those positions. But
you would never be right for those.
No, you'd be laughed out of the recruiter's office, and but you're it, baby. And
exactly.
So how do you balance that? How do you teach people to spread themselves out and be effective?
Oh, it's hard, right? But it is like, okay, so know what you don't know. I agree, right? Like I don't know how to like there's some things I don't know how to do that I can learn to do. So, for example, for me, when I was first starting out, one person shop, I needed to put graphics on my site. So I could hire a designer, which is nuts because I didn't have any budget. There was no way I was going to be able to afford the kind of designer that could put something nice together for me that I'd be willing to pay for. So I had to teach myself Photoshop. And that's like, okay, so that's one thing that you can do. You can teach yourself that. But then there are other things that you can't hire yourself for. Like hire yourself for the things you can do well and figure out some of the things you can muddle your way through when you're early on. And then the stuff that you can't do, you have to work to find money to hire someone for that. So for me, bookkeeping is a disaster. Like, holy crap. And my bookkeeper, like I have an accountant with a bookkeeper inside where the bookkeeper goes through our books every month and the accountant does our like taxes and all that kind of stuff. So, but my bookkeeper, even today, like I don't understand what she doesn't understand because I don't get it. I don't know what you're looking at. I know I wrote for QuickBooks for 5 years. I still don't know what's happening in here. And she's like, oh, just integrate it with that thing. And I'm like, no. I'll give you money and you integrate it with that thing. I can't do that thing. I don't know how. I'm not faking it. I don't know how. And so it's that kind of stuff, right? So some things you can teach yourself to do until you can afford to pay someone else. And other things you have to be real about, like doing your books right is pretty important. So make sure the things that have to be done a certain way. And if getting clients is your number one thing, if you have yourself and you're ready to do the work, but you hate getting clients, well, is there some way you can, one, teach yourself to get better at that? Or two, if you really can't and it's super critical, is there somebody you can outsource that to or somebody you can partner with? But identifying what those critical things are and then like not just letting them slip away or just like take care of themselves because they won't.
Yeah, that's the key right there. That's really brilliant because that's exactly what we want to do. Again, it's the resistance. If we can hide from it, we will. But like Joe said, you just can't. It's not going away. It just sits there and accumulates and creates a night. It's like not paying your taxes. If you're just like, I really intend to. It's just inconvenient. And 3 years goes by, and guess what? You get a big problem.
Huge trouble.
Cool. Interesting. All right. So, something I've been focused on a lot lately is helping copywriters figure out when freelancing is for them or if maybe they should be looking, for a position at a company because anymore there's a lot of great opportunities for us to work virtually, but have full-time work, right?
Yes, totally.
What do you find in that? Do you have some assessments you use with people? Because, look, freelancing and closing deals and landing clients and networking and all that kind of stuff just isn't for a lot of people.
Exactly. And just like being real about that. It's true. Not intimidated by it because I think a lot of us have a great leader or a great salesperson buried inside. We just haven't ever had the chance to explore that person, especially if you're in an execution role generally, like where you work, like if you're a designer, if you're a writer, if you're the person who actually like sits down and does the work, you're generally not encouraged to take on the leadership role internally. Someone else tells you what to do. So you just have that, your hands kind of tied there. You're never given a shot. Like the gate's never opened. You can never go experience that. So for me, I do with my freelancers in the copywriter mastermind that I have, there are, I think out of the ones that we've had like 25 or 6 people go through it. And there have been a few where I've suggested that they go in-house. And it really comes down to, for me, there's a really simple test. Because if you're going to be a freelancer, or not a test, but a way of knowing, if you're going to be a freelancer, you're going to have to build a business and you're going to have to like that part of it. So I ask people very simply how often they played with Lego when they were kids. And if they didn't gravitate to Lego, if they're not like, I loved Lego. Like I still play with Lego. Like Lego's the best. When my nephew brings out Lego, I build it with him. Like I don't use the instructions. I just build it myself. Like that's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, you're a builder. You're somebody who might want to build things, who imagines things and could then be capable of building something. So there might be something in you. And of course that is problematic in ways because executors are also commonly Lego players as well. Like they've played with Lego growing up too. But there is this like, how enthusiastic are you about building things is what it comes down, because you're going to be building a business. You didn't just play with Lego for a year. Like you played with it to an unhealthy age where like you were supposed to be going to prom, but you had to finish this like castle you were working on or something. Like how much did you love Lego? Because if you did, then chances are good that even if it feels hard, and it will, so much of it will feel hard when you're growing your business or just establishing it. Even when that happens, you're going to be someone who's focused on building, on getting to the end point, on like continuing to add pieces to it, make it bigger, make it better, take pieces away that aren't working, replace them with those that are. So that's how I think if you have a strong background where that was something that you did, then you're probably going to make a decent entrepreneur. If you didn't, and I think of like my sister, who I love dearly, she never played Lego with us. And today she feels more comfortable being employed. It works better for her to have somebody else telling her what to do, and of course asking for her opinion and things, but where she doesn't have to steer the ship, like she just goes in. And so it might be something, but it's worked so far for our members of our mastermind. It's a pretty good way to tell.
I like that.
Someone's got it.
Very cool. Lego, the Lego test.
Lego.
Awesome. Let's switch real quick to public speaking. Is this something you're doing because people kept demanding it of you, or is it always something you've enjoyed?
No, it hasn't been something I've enjoyed. Only recently have I started enjoying it. But no, it's super high stress, and I identify as a writer, which I'm not like the exception, the outgoing writer who like walks into a room and owns it. I am the quiet person in the corner who doesn't want to be noticed. So there's that. But when you're running a business, I have found like in my first 3 years of Copy Hackers, I made a rule to myself, or like a deal with myself. And that was I was going to just say yes to everything. Just say yes. And so when scary stuff came up, I said yes to it. And that included talking at conferences, getting on a stage. I said yes, because I don't know any better. How do I know how I grow my business, right? Like, I don't know. Might this be the way I grow it? Maybe. So let's give it a shot. And so I did, and it was scary. But the more you go to these conferences, like depending on what field you sort of specialize in, or like the industry or whatever, the more you see more of the same speakers there, and you develop those friendships, and you actually hear from them how sick they felt in the beginning too. Like, so there's like this comfort, like, don't worry. Everybody that looks confident on that stage either was throwing up in the back room before they got out here, no exaggeration, or the first few times they did it, they were throwing up behind the stage. Like, the bathroom is behind the stage at these places for a reason. Like, we have to haul ass in there and like get our bearings together. So no, it's been a scary thing. But I did so in high school, I did high school drama. And so maybe that helped a bit. So I'm not terrified to get on a stage once I'm on it, but definitely leading up to it, you feel like, why am I doing this? Like, there's gotta be an easier way. Like, why am I here? But it's paid off in, countless ways. Like, I did a post about everything that fell out of my first speaking engagement, which was on the stage at MicroConf, which is this awesome conference for small businesses that aren't trying to be ginormous businesses right away. And so there's so much that came out of that one engagement that I can't imagine ever recommending that somebody not do it.
Yeah, great point. Cool. So I'm glad you're learning to enjoy it. You're going to be in Dublin. They're flying you all over the world now, girl. You're in demand.
I know. I'm super international now.
And they got you that you're in the after lunch spot. So
am I?
Yep. So
immediately after lunch?
Yeah, lunch
Sweet.
is at 2.
That's the best.
You are at 3, and that means because that means halfway through your presentation, people are going to start nodding. And so if you've got some sex jokes, I recommend you drop them in. The dirty stuff goes in the middle. Just my tip.
Okay. That's another T-shirt unto itself. The dirty stuff goes in the middle. Okay, great. It's just a good rule. Okay. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know when I was. I have to check that out still. But yeah, cool.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to Dublin. I can't wait.
That is very cool. All right, last question. Oh, actually, I have to ask you the essential question of the show. I'll save that for last. If I have a couple more minutes, I'm curious about, because you teach a lot of cool different stuff, and you and I run similar businesses now, where we're not working with clients, we're coaching, we're consulting, we're teaching, and creating courses and workshops and cool stuff for people. How do you determine what's worth your time in creating? Like a new offer?
Most of our things that we do now are based 100% on somebody, like a lot of people asked us, can you teach me how to do this? Can you teach me how to do that? And so that doesn't mean that all of those turn into something. Like we get a lot of requests to put together a course on blogging, but I'm unlikely to want to do that. It's not a really good fit. We teach copywriting, and copywriting and content creation aren't the same thing. So although I'm sure we could put together a course on courses, a course on presenting on stage, a course on any other things that people ask you about, that doesn't mean you should do it, right? So we stick to our wheelhouse. We talk about copywriting, and we like to keep our courses focused. So we have 2. We're only going to have 2. We've landed after iterating on them and listening. So we've done a couple courses over time that we've had students in, and then we ask them what they would like to see more of, what they didn't understand, what they'd like to see done differently. And then we put new training together. So we've built to this place where we now have 10x emails, 10x landing pages. Those are our 2 products, the only 2 courses that we're going to sell. And yeah, those all came from just the usual, the thing that works time after time is listening to what your ideal prospects, people who are likely to also buy, not just who want stuff from you, but who are likely to want to buy and put their money where their mouth is. What are they looking for? So people who bought ebooks from us and said, great ebook, but I'd love to see like how you actually put this into play. So a course is a really good fit for that. So that's where our ideas come from for our products.
Fantastic. Once again, results driven.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. It's Joanna Wiebe from copyhackers.com. Really enjoyed this. Thank you for making the time. And
Thanks.
Let me ask you, Joanna Wiebe, what is the one thing you've done in your marketing that has produced the most surprising results?
The one thing we've done that's produced the most surprising results. I mean, I don't know if it's just because I have speaking in my head. I'm sure I'll have a billion ideas after this. But what I was surprised by is how one speaking engagement can explode things. So for me, this was a pivotal moment for me in my career and at Copy Hackers was after I spoke at MicroConf. I then wrote a post on Kissmetrics, and it was about 6 ways to make your product look like a total steal. Brian Clark from Copyblogger read that, wrote to me and said, hey, love your stuff. Do you want to write on Copyblogger? And I was still brand new. I'd been in discussions with people I knew, how do you get on Copyblogger? What can I do to get on Copyblogger? Cool. And so to have him write, so that email came immediately after, immediately after that, 2 minutes after that, he wrote, oh, and I see you speak. Do you want to speak at our next conference?
Wow.
For me, I was like, holy crap, that was unexpected. I would never have thought that saying yes to my friend Rob at MicroConf and actually going on stage and doing it would almost immediately, 2 months later, result in being asked by my copywriting hero to come talk at his conference. It was blow my mind. Totally surprised, would not have expected to have such results from that one little talk. So I would say that was the most surprising thing. The other surprising is just the negative stuff, like that AdWords has not worked for growing my business at all. That's it.
We'll have to do a follow-up with the negative answer. I always love those.
That's true.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Well, it's that star factor, right? That's the cool thing about speaking. And clearly you did a smart job of promoting that appearance enough for Brian to, find material and see that you speak, right? Again, for freelancers, self-promotion.
Yes.
Get over yourself and brag a little. It doesn't
brag a lot.
Brag a lot.
Like,
yeah.
No one else will brag for you. If you think you're name dropping too much, it's still not enough. I will tell people everything all the time. If someone hires me or someone tries to hire me, people know when Google tried to hire me. They're like, stop talking about it. Nope. Have to keep talking about it. It's important. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but it's a huge part.
Yeah, love it. Great. Okay, Joanna Wiebe, she can do lots of great things for you. Go. I'll apologize in advance if you haven't been to Copy Hackers. You're about to lose 2 hours of your life because there's not an article on this site that I don't want to read top to bottom. So thanks for all the cool stuff you're doing for our industry, helping freelancers, and being an all-around badass.
Thanks, Kevin. That's awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks again for listening to the Truth About Marketing podcast. If you like this show and you think other people would like this show, the best way to spread the word is by reviewing and rating the show in iTunes. Just log in, click review, leave a big old fat 5-star review, and let everybody know that you dig the show so that they can dig it too. To get all the links and resources we mentioned on today's episode, please go to copychief.com/TAM, as in Truth About Marketing. And if you'd like to learn more about how you can improve your sales copy with templates, formulas, coaching, feedback, or hiring a pro, do all that on the inside of the members area of copychief.com, and I will look for you there. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.